Yeah, there's an expression in Australia, getting up at sparrow's fart, for a sparrow is a type of bird. So if someone says getting up at sparrow's fart, that means they got up really fucking early. Was that you this morning?
I mean, we have sparrows, but we definitely don't have. We never refer to birds farting to getting up early. But I love it. I love farts, man. So farts are funny for me.
Hey man, hey man. Yes, Chris warned me that this was going to be a fun interview. Um, Mate, so look, for those who don't know, what can you tell me about the tour that you're doing in Australia? Like, what are these shows going to look like?
Well, there's it's American Pie Emo Night Tour, and there's a 3 act bill. And basically you're gonna find either one, two, or all three of these items at any one of the shows that I'm doing in Australia. So there's obviously screenings of the film to celebrate the 25th American Pie. And then there's live music, either acoustic or with the full band. And then there's also emo night DJ sets. And so
Like,
I've laid out a very complex map with a with sort of a key
a little
guide
legend,
to let
yeah.
you know, yeah, to let you know which one's happening on any particular night. So Gold Coast gets all three at in Burley Head at Moe's Desert Clubhouse, and then in Brisbane we're just doing the screening.
Yes, that's where I'll be seeing you. So I'll be seeing you in Nunda uh, on Monday, I believe. So
Yeah,
that'll be
Monday.
nice. This is interesting for me, man. I've literally done over 1,000 interviews, but they've always been musicians. So I've always, I've interviewed some of my favorite artists, the people that I literally grew up with their poster on my wall. So, I've gotten pretty over being, impressed by people, but this is the first time I've actually seen someone who's been in a movie that I grew up watching. So you're the first actor, I think. Yeah, first actor I've ever actually spoken to. So this is
Well,
fucking
and
wild.
the best part is we have the best name possible. We're
I know.
both Tom.
It's a strong name. It's a strong name. It's built for success. Um, yeah, man. A friend of mine gave me, I was 16 years old in 2001. So, a friend of mine gave me a dog-eared VHS copy of American Pie, and that was it. I was like, this movie is rude. This movie is crude. This movie is everyone looks greasy for some reason. I only found out decades later that it was because you were all sweating your asses off because it was filmed in the middle of summer. I didn't know this. I just thought, why is everyone in this like a shade darker of brown, and everyone just looks wet?
It was a little warm. Plus, when we were on some of the sets, we were a studio film, but a very small budget, only $10 million. So some of the studios weren't like we weren't on the lot with like the air conditioned sort of thing. We were like in some smaller studio environment. So it was warm at times.
Oh dear. Is it true that you originally thought it was a porno when you were reading the script?
Well, when you say it like that, it sounds a little strange.
Yeah.
To be specific, yes, but the answer is yes. The first scene that I read was, well, okay, look, let me paint the whole picture for you.
Yeah, do it, do it,
I
do it.
was I was 17. I get sent a script to read to audition for this project. It's a Universal film, and the title page says untitled teen sex comedy that you can make for under $10 million that most readers will hate, but I think you'll love. So I laugh. I open the first page, and it's not Jim and his sock puppet.
Yeah.
You know the scene. It's Kevin and Vicky's instructing Kevin on which way to move his fingers. And the first line is like something about a circle with a line through it. I close the first page. I toss the script in the trash. I call my agent and I say, "Why are you sending me porn?" But
Outstanding.
they ended up offering it to my friend Andrew Keegan, who was busy doing 10 Things I Hate About You with Heath Ledger.
Yep.
And there was one day in particular that they couldn't coordinate the schedules. So this is like a little bit farther into the rabbit hole. There was one day on the set that they were shooting the scene with Save Ferris, the band.
With who?
And
With who?
with Save Ferret.
Right.
You know, like they had that cover of "Come On Eileen"
Yep. Yep.
that
Yep.
came out in the '90s, and so I've joked with Monique that it was her band that saved my role because otherwise Andrew Keegan would have done it. So I lovingly refer to Monique's band as Save Kevin.
I love it. Is Does the legacy of it surprise you? Like, if you had any surprising fan, like people come up to you and be like, "Oh my God, I thought it was so funny when someone drank your cum in a beer," like, and you just like, "Can I just have my ticket?"
I haven't had those kinds of experiences that some of my castmates have had. You know, where like especially Allison Hannigan will be like out with her daughters, and someone will be like, "And this one time at band camp," she's like, "Please don't finish the
Yeah,
sentence."
yeah.
Um, so for me, I'm just very grateful that the success of the film has continued to open doors of opportunity for me.
Hmm.
And, you know, the point in case is here I am 25 years later getting to tour in Australia because of this $1 billion franchise. So
Yeah.
I'm so grateful, man.
And it's really interesting, isn't it? People will use the phrase like one hit wonder, particularly in relation to musicians, as a point of denigration. And I'm like, dude, do you realize how statistically improbable it is that you will even in your career get one opportunity to make something that people like a generation can be like, oh fuck, I remember that song, or oh my God, I can remember when American Pie came out and it was wild. Like, that's sick, man. That is so cool.
Yeah, I like I said, it's something I don't really fathom, but like the combination, I thought after I did Rookie of the Year when I was a kid, and that was a successful studio film, that I was like, oh no, I'm gonna be like a 40-year-old with one feather under my cap. And then obviously I got blessed with American Pie and, you know, a total of 4 films. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's incredible, man. You're absolutely right. And there's nothing wrong with being a one-hit wonder as a musician either.
Yeah. I said the exact same thing to the guy from Wheatus who you just performed with. Yes, I think it was yesterday on your Instagram story.
Oh, dude. So that was funny. Like, obviously, I had a delay with my travel getting into town, uncontrollable. And so I text Brendan. I'm like, hey, I'm not going to be able to play my set, but I'm gonna race there. Like, I'm gonna land and come straight to the gig. It was like a movie scene, Tom. I ran up to the venue like carrying all my bags, guitar over my shoulder. I knock on the window of the loft. Brendan looks. He's just explaining to the crowd their part for the girl section, you know, to like, I got 2 tickets. So he's just explaining that. And that's when I arrived. So I like run in on stage, big cheer, and then joined in for the sing along for Teenage Dirtbag. You couldn't have planned it any better. I mean, the better plan would have been making it in time to make my set, but in
No, fuck that. That's for losers.
yeah, I'd never been on time to anything in my life.
Oh.
Shit. Based upon the connection, I was late to this interview.
Yeah, it's true. Hey, mate, you do well. You do well. What what was your own adolescence like, mate? Because I suppose you were technically in it because you were 17 when you got the script. Most of you, because I know you were a teenager. I know that not Stifler.
Eddie
Shipwreck.
K.
What was
Comment.
his Shipwreck? What was his name? Help me out.
Finch. Finch.
Yes, Finch. Sorry, Finch was the actor who played Finch was also 17, I believe.
Well, so I turned 18 like right before we started filming. So therefore they could show my scenes. Eddie was still 17, which is why his scene happens off camera with
Mm-hmm.
Stifler's mom. They couldn't show it because it would have been then we would have been an NC-17 film.
Yes.
Then we
I
would have been a porno.
a potentially really illegal one too. What mate? Well, because the question was going to be like, what was your own adolescence like? I mean, I suppose you had done films as a kid, so you go to like a professional kids school or?
I did by the time I got to high school because I knew that I was, you know, really pursuing my career. I was, you know, in regular school as a kid, like in elementary school, But it became increasingly difficult the more that I would work, because when I went to do Rookie of the Year, I came back to the seventh grade and I was just like a month behind everyone else's schedule. And so I
Mm.
spent my whole Christmas break just doing schoolwork to catch up. And so by the time I could finish junior high school, or what we call it, like the eighth grade, when I entered high school, I went to a professional school just so that it was easier to work.
Mm.
And I love to work. Now I've got 3 careers. I clearly don't have a problem working.
Yeah. Was the process of losing your virginity anywhere near as sexually embarrassing as the American Pie? You know,
The most embarrassing part about that was being 18 and doing the press interviews for the film, and having every press interviewer ask me when I was 18, so when did you lose your virginity? Tell us about it. Could you imagine being 18 years old and telling the world about the first time you got laid?
that must be nuts. Yeah, and
I've got a
also,
pretty skin when it comes to interviews, thanks to that moment, because it's kind of like, you really can't shock me more than
yeah,
that. And I already lived that for an entire, year.
whenever someone is stupid enough, and they're a guy, and they're stupid enough to say the phrase, "Oh man, you can ask me anything," I will immediately, without hesitating, be like, "Okay, are you circumcised?" Hey, you said anything.
Hey,
It's
there's
like, oh,
there's an art to answering questions that you don't want to answer.
just got to change the subject. You just got to divert. That's when you're just like, oh, I tell you, it's great to be in Australia. Looking forward to the show. So. Mate, when did you start? When did you were saying about the 3 branches of your creativity and your work? When did music first enter your life?
I started acting when I was 6. I started playing guitar when I was 14. But I didn't record my first album until I was 17. In fact, I had just finished my first album right when I was doing American Pie, pitched them to a song on the soundtrack. They said yes, but then the music supervisor was a total cockblock and didn't let it happen. And that, to be fair, that album itself, I've destroyed all the copies, because that was like I call it my college of music.
Yeah,
You're 17, you do your first album. It wasn't until like really my 4th album that I was happy with the sound. So I have erased the other 3 from history. So I call my 4th album the first one. So I've just released my 7th. Well, if you're really counting, that means it's my like 10th or 11th or something. I don't know.
oh, oh dear, so many secrets, so much secrecy. So basically, anyone who has a copy of these terrible but very rare early albums of yours, that's money, money.
Well, no, it's still a terrible album. It's not going to be worth anything. I mean, music is important when it's done well. And look, I did my best. But man, I think I would. I don't know what would have happened if I got the title track in the soundtrack like I had wanted. But man, I tell you, it not only didn't work out for me in that respect, so it got worse. After I didn't get the song in the soundtrack, I signed with a distributor, and they knew I had a studio film coming out. So Tower Records ordered 3,000 copies for their stores nationwide. So I went and printed 5,000 copies of the record, because that was like the first price break.
Yeah.
I sat with my mom and put stickers on all 3,000 copies to like advertise that I was the guy in American Pie. I knew I had a big studio
Yeah.
film coming out. So the CDs get delivered to Tower Records. The distribution company goes out of business. So Tower
No.
Records goes, well, no one can facilitate the sale of these records. So they sent them all back to me. So I housed 5,000 copies of this record in a storage unit for 10 plus years, maybe 15. And finally I was like, fuck this. I took them all to like the shredding place, and I paid $500 more to shred every copy. I was like, forget these things. Let's start fresh.
Wow, oh no, what a story, you poor bastard.
Hey man, I'm not one to give up though. So here
No.
I am. You know, I've been a DIY musician since the first since my first album in 2008, and I've played 1,000 shows in now I can say 13 countries. It
Wow.
was 12 because now I get to add another country to the fray coming over here.
Yeah, it's weird. You definitely can't have someone, accuse you of pulling a Bruce Willis or a Russell Crowe. Like, you have evidently been doing this for long enough that, you're not an actor turned musician. You're just like an actor and musician. You've done
Yeah,
well.
definitely. I definitely do both. I'm more along the lines of like someone, and I'm going to compare myself to someone who's fantastic, but you all have to shoot for it. More like Jared Leto. He's the
Mhm.
only musician that has done it to a massive successful scale. The only difference between the two of us, I think, is that during the time that he was pushing his first record, he didn't want anyone to talk about his acting career. Me, I'm always going to do both. So I
Mm.
don't have a problem talking about both. And I just, I love connecting with people. I love staying in the creative space. And I'm very thankful that I get to do what I do and call it work.
I'm really happy to hear that because it pisses me off when people will try to launch another career or spear into another career and then will act indignant when people are like, oh, we only know. It's like, how do you even pronounce her name? Mia Khalifa, the porn star? Yeah, the person she did porn. She did try to, and then she tried to reinvent herself as a sports writer or something, and she would crack the shits if people. I'm like, you're literally still calling yourself Mia Khalifa. You know this. Don't fucking bullshit me.
I sense a theme in our interview, Tom. It's just constantly revolving around porn.
There's porn and sex. It's just, yeah, I look, admittedly, they're not normally this blue, but I was warned ahead of time because Chris Peters was saying that apparently the conversation had denigrated to masturbating on a bidet or something. And I was like, I can work with this. Yeah, I am an incredibly hard to shock person. So I'm like, fuck it. Let's get demonetized together. Um, Speaking of things that were, I tell you, that raised a few eyebrows when I first saw it, you also appeared in one of my favorite films of the period, The Rules of Attraction.
That's
Uh,
one of the films also.
mm, oh, so just Jesus Christ. I imagine my face when I first saw the opening like 10 minutes must have been priceless. I would have, again, been like 18. And everything's in rewind when things started rewinding and the guy starts rewinding.
So I don't know if you know this or not, but Tom and Andy that did the soundtrack for that designed their music so you can play it forward and backward and it has the same melody.
I remember, right? That makes, yeah. For the years I was calling them Tom and Dandy because I didn't realize it was Tom and Andy.
Right.
Yeah, I was fixated. They did the music for that. They did it for Arlington Road as well and a bunch of other stuff. And I was like, yeah, Tom and Andy. I'd love to find out more about them because they were fucking great.
Yeah, that was an incredible experience, man. Like working with Roger Avery. Uh, and we're still in touch. Like I was just playing in Winnipeg, Canada, and I put up like a post, for my like Instagram, note, whatever city I'm in. And Roger like wished me well. He's like, "Oh, I love Winnipeg," and it's
Yeah.
just so cool. He's just such a dude.
Was it
This is a guy that won an Oscar for writing Pulp Fiction for crying out loud.
yeah, and has been to jail. He did a really good he was just on a podcast with Quentin Tarantino. He was on Joe Rogan. That was a very interesting conversation. He's an
Yeah,
interesting dude.
man, that whole story is so sad because that was his best friend as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was what were your thoughts when you finally saw, obviously when you'd filmed it and it's been in the can for 6 months and you finally saw Rules of Attraction? Like what was your
Oh, dude, I mean, I knew it was going to be a masterpiece. I watched the way Roger was working. And there was so many moments that were just beyond brilliant, and his allowance for the art to take place the way that it did. I knew it was going to be great. And obviously I saw like bits and pieces. He let me sit in the editing room and watch him edit the film. I was like, can I just come be a fly on the wall? Like, I promise I won't say anything. And then I remember he walked out of the room and the editor was like choosing a shot where Clifton Collins like gets the gun pointed at his like head when he's like doing the whole motherfucker speech, I got motherfucking, motherfucking, asshole. I'm a motherfucking elbow. He's like, and obviously Clifton's friends with Samuel L. Jackson and all that. So I remember like she couldn't decide between the gun going like here or here, and she like asked my opinion. I was like, am I about to give my opinion on like which shots to use? So the one I chose is the one that's in there.
Nice. Good, man. Well, I remember thinking, I'll tell you, that's a really well-picked shot. I mean, whoever picked that shot,
Yeah.
Rest of the movie, garbage. But that was what got me. Yeah, I loved it. Lastly, mate, I mean, we've talked a bit about your adolescence and your music and stuff. What was the soundtrack to that? What were some of the albums that changed your life when you were a teenager?
Man, I mean, the first album that got me into music was Nevermind, of course. I was, 14. And then that Dookie, Wheatus Blue album, Blues Traveler Hook, and Spin Doctor's Pocket Full of Kryptonite were the first 5 albums that I bought at the CD store. And since that time, I've toured with Chris Barron from the Spin Doctors, wrote a song and released it with Blues Traveler. So I am, I recorded my frat party album at Dave Grohl's Studio 606. Still haven't met Dave. And then I feel like at this point I need to meet Dave, tour with Green Day, and do something with Weezer.
Just give Dave another few weeks. He's probably he's processing. I think we might get outgoing Dave Grohl back in a little bit long.
Well, he was out feeding people during like the fires in LA and stuff that I saw in the press. Yeah, he always does that when there's like a big disaster in LA. He's out like cooking for 24 hours and taking care of people. He's such a mensch.
What a good man. Thomas, this has been rad. Again, this is something that literally just popped into my lap like I think it was yesterday when Chris got in touch with me, and I'm like, fuck yes, I'll chat to him. Like, this is awesome. So, yeah, man, look, enjoy the beer, enjoy lunch, and I will see you tomorrow night, or during the day or whenever it is, in Nunda. And we'll try to think of a new question, or I'll just throw one of these ones that I've already asked you again, and you'll have to pretend like you haven't heard it. So
that's good, man. Yeah, it'll be Monday, February 3rd. At the Royal Quarters in Brisbane. I'm looking forward to hanging with you, Tom.
Easy, man. I'll see you then.